Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hanabi is a game that I really enjoy. I like cooperative games to begin with, I like card games, and this one has the unique aspect of that sort of Indian poker thing of not knowing what you have in your own hand, but knowing what the other players have. It just really works. And it was even the 2013 Spiel des Jahres winner, so obviously a few people agree with me. I have a video review somewhere on my channel if you want to go and check that out and find out even more information about the game. But today we're going to take a look at the deluxe version of Hanabi from R&R Games. Now, there was already a deluxe version of this. Well, let me say that there's been many versions of Hanabi. That's what happens when you're the Spiel des Jahres winner. But specifically, there was a deluxe version of Hanabi that was actually quite a bit different. Originally released only in Europe, I think only officially released in Europe. This is the R&R Games edition we're going to talk about today. I'm actually going to have a link down in the description section, I hope if I remember, that will take you to someone else's very informative blog post that compares and contrasts the two different deluxe editions, and you can make up your mind which one you think you're going to prefer to buy, and I'll talk about that more in my final thoughts. But this is the same game that hopefully you've come to love and enjoy of Hanabi, but instead of cards, you have tiles, or like big, thick Mahjong tiles. So you play the game the same way, but just in a different way. Let's go ahead and take a brief look at the new stuff that is in the deluxe edition, and I'll run through how to play the game again too, because it's pretty simple, and I'm kind of probably taught the game like 4 times this past weekend to different groups of players, so I'm on a streak. Let's go ahead and do that, then we're going to come back. I'll give you my final thoughts on this new set. Alright, let me give you a brief rundown of the new Hanabi Deluxe Edition from R&R Games. So here's the box that it comes in, and it's a pretty sturdy box. It comes with a magnetic seal on the side, which is cool. I like magnetic seals, although I will tell you that, as I'll mention in my final thoughts, it doesn't hold all that well against the weight of everything that's inside of it, so keep that in mind. I would never like willy-nilly flip it up and down like that without holding the side. Then you open it up, and here it tells you how to put the tiles in, which seems kind of not necessary, but okay. You have a slightly bigger rule book than you would normally have for Hanabi. And then you have the inside of the box here. Now, these are, I think this is just telling you that you put some tiles here, this little thing, and it takes up space in the box. This is my storage solution for the little clue and fuse chips. You see, I kind of have them there in the side, although I'll probably put them in a baggie eventually, but that's kind of how they come to you in the game. Then on top here are the actual tiles. Dun, 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 dun. Now, each of the tiles has an actual backing to it. This little back image of like one of those famous Japanese Shinto gates and the fireworks display in the background. They all have the same backing. Probably would have been better to have no background whatsoever, although it wouldn't have looked as nice. And then on the other side, you have the actual image of the fireworks. Now, these are obviously those crazy, wild rainbow colors that you can use as a 5th color or as a wild variant. Lots of different nightmare mode variants you can use for those. So you've got all those different ones on top, and as you can see, the way that the tiles are set up is that whatever the number is, that's how many symbols you have. So there's no actual number on these tiles like there would be on the cards. Instead, you just have to count symbols, which I know that's a lot of work, but that's what you have to do. So let's go ahead and dive deeper into this. I haven't yet found a good solution as to how to get these out. Dumping them all out might potentially damage them or your table surface, so you probably just have to take them out stack by stack, row by row. But here's some other examples. There's the red 2, and there's the blue. See, they all have their color. Well, they're kind of colorblind friendly in the sense that they have different symbols for them. But then again, since the whole game is kind of based on naming colors in instances of numbers anyways, that can be kind of rough. So I guess you'd have to say, if you're a colorblind, you say 4 of the circular things. I guess that might work. But anyways, that's most of the game. I mean, I'm not going to show you every single tile here, but just show you a few to give you a taste for what they look like. There's the yellow and the green. You see? Okay? So, since otherwise this would be a very short overview, why don't I actually explain how Hanabi works again for those who don't know, and what it might look like playing with the tiles. Alright, so this is your typical setup for a 3-player game of Hanabi, the Deluxe Edition in this case. I'll go ahead and explain this as if you have potentially never played Hanabi before. Hanabi is a cooperative game for 2 to 5 players. The goal is to put on a vibrant and extraordinary fireworks display. Mechanically speaking, you're just trying to complete numbered sets representing fireworks and try to get the highest score possible. Amongst all of these tiles, there are 5 different colors depicted on the tiles. Oh no, I looked at my own tiles. Anyways, so there's 5 different colors. You have yellow, blue, red, green, and white. And on the tiles, you're going to have symbols, either 1 to 5 symbols for every color. And the number of those that you have for each number are different. So there's, for every color, there's 3 1s, there's 2 2s, 2 3s, 2 4s, and 1 5. There's only one of the 5s in the deck. Wow, do I have all blues? No. Okay, so there's a green. And this one is a green too. Now, at the end of the game, you're trying to put all these in sequence and so you'll have 5, hopefully have 5 different colors laid out off to the side. And I don't have any ones, but you'll have them all laid off to the side. And at the end of the game, you're going to score the highest number for every color that you have. So the best score that you can get without playing with any of the variants would be 25 points, because you'll have scored the 5 for every color. But that is very difficult to do, as you'll discover. Now, the whole gimmick of Hanabi, sort of the pivot point that the entire game turns on, is the fact that you don't know. I know I've been using this as an example as if I'm the phantom player here, but you don't actually know what's on your own tiles. When you shuffle up all the tiles from the game and draw the appropriate amount from the stack, you draw them facing away from you. So you are not allowed to look at any time at your own tiles on the other side, but you can see everyone else's tiles. So you see, here's the other players over here. You can always clearly see what they are. And you cannot just freely give information to the other players as to what's in their hand. You can't just say, oh, well, you've got a green 4, a yellow 3, a red 1, and so on. There's a certain thing that you have to do in the game in order to give clues to people. So you'll decide who's going to go first, and on your turn you have one of 3 possible actions that you can perform, but you can only do one action. One of those is to play one of your tiles. Now remember, you don't know necessarily what's on your tiles, so it can be kind of risky to play it, but if you decide to play a tile, and if it actually fits in sequence, then it's considered a legal move. To be put into sequence, it has to either start a number, to start a color. In other words, you haven't yet started blue, and you're playing a tile, and it's actually the 1 blue, which is actually over here. So this person actually plays the 1 blue, and that is the start of the sequence. That was a legal move because we have just started blue. But if blue had already started and someone tried to play another 1 blue, well, that's an illegal move because you can't play the same number and color out there. So therefore, we lose a life. You have this little stack of fuses here, which really just sort of depicts how many times you can fail by playing your cards / tiles. And if you fail 3 times, kaboom, your fireworks display explodes, I guess, and kills all of you. In any case, the game immediately ends and you just see how many points you gained, or you just say that it was a total loss. Now, once you do have a 1 out there for a particular color, now you have to start building on that, which means the 2 has to come next, then the 3, then the 4, then the 5. You cannot just skip ahead and play a 3 or 4 or a 5 if you haven't built the previous numbers. So that means that that would also be an illegal play if I were to try and play a blue 3 here as well. So you have to be very careful just playing a tile willy-nilly. Now, without having information first, which I'll get back to in a minute. Now, the other thing you can do on your turn is just discard a tile. So you can just, again, without knowing necessarily what's in your hand, you can just take one of the tiles and discard it off to the side. And that is actually going to reset one of these clue tokens. You have 8 clue tokens at the beginning of the game that are charged and fresh and ready to use, but you're going to be using those quickly. So discarding a tile is that you're going to take one of these ones you've already used and flip it back over to its proper side. The problem with that is you only have a certain number of all those tiles, like I said before, 3 1s, 2 2s, 2 3s, 2 4s, and 1 5. if you discard too many tiles or have too many illegal plays with tiles, you may block yourself out from completing a color. If you get rid of your only 5, you will never be able to complete that color, so you'll never even have a chance at getting the maximum score. So keep that in mind. Although, if you fully complete a color, you'll automatically recharge one of your clues. And also, either if you've been blocked out of a color or if you fully completed it, you know that every other tile still in the game of that is kind of useless, so you might as well discard them if you know where they are. So how are you going to know what tiles you have in your hands? And how are other people going to know that as well? Well, that's where the third type of action you have is, and that's giving a clue. You flip over one of the available clue tokens if hopefully one of the clue tokens is available, and then you give people clues about what's in their hand. Now, there is a certain methodology you have to use here when giving a clue. You can name every instance of a color or every instance of a number. So for instance, I know it's kind of hard to see, but we have a red 1 here, a green 1, a red 2, a blue 1, and a yellow 5. Now what I would be able to do here if I was giving this player a clue, I could say either, okay, you have to indicate which tiles you're pointing at first off, clearly, and then without any shenanigans, like putting emphasis on extra words, I could say, this tile and this tile are red. Or I could say this tile, and this tile are all 1. But I can't say both of them. I can't say these are 1s and this is blue, this is green, and this is red. And I have to give every single instance of a color or number. I can't just say, oh, this is a 1. These are all 1s. And I couldn't just say, oh, this is a red. I'd have to say these are red. So there is some subtlety to the game as to how you should give a clue in order to make it the most efficient and get your point across. So, for instance, let's say that over here to the side, we'd already completed up to stage 4 of the yellow fireworks. And I wanted to give someone a clue that they had the yellow 5. Well, I could just tell them that this is a 5, but that could mean several different things. It could mean, okay, don't play that because that's a 5 for another color and we don't want you to play it or discard it. But I could be telling them, yes, play that because that's the yellow 5 that we need. So you may sometimes have to spend 2 clues just to give someone perfect information. Like on one turn, someone says, okay, that's a 5, and then someone else says, oh, that's yellow. But that's not very efficient, and you want to try to give subtle clues to someone to, yes, you should play that, even though I've only given you partial information. That's kind of a rough example, but that's kind of what you have to do in this game in order to get the highest score possible. Now, the game is going to end in a few ways. One is if you die, you lose all your tokens, and the game is going to end immediately. The other way is if you have a perfect game, which is really hard to do, which is you've completed all 5 rows from 1 to 5 and have a perfect score. Or if someone draws the last tile, then after every time that you play or discard, you have to draw a tile. Then everyone has, including the person that drew the last tile, has 1 more turn, and then the game ends, and you figure out what your score is. If you were perfect, fantastic, but chances are you're not, and you just try to get the highest score possible. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the game also came with these rainbow tiles. These are in the same, they're like little rainbow pinwheels here. They're in the same amount, quantity, and numbers as all of the other tiles, 1 through 5, the same instances of them. And you can do several different variants with these. This is like nightmare mode, by the way. One thing is that you can do is just have them be treated as a 6th color. So this is a 6th thing that you have to worry about. And if you were pointing out tiles like this in someone's hand, you'd say, this is rainbow, or whatever, or wild, or however you want to say it. You could also or say that when these are in someone's hands, they count as every color. Which means that, let's say that this was the lineup in this player's hand, and I wanted to point out all the green that he has, I'd have to say, this tile and this tile are green, because this counts as every one. So there's other things you can do with these as well, but that's essentially it. It's like the nightmare challenge mode of the game. I think it's hard enough as it is. But that's just a brief overview of Hanabi, specifically the Deluxe Edition. Let's get to my final thoughts. Well, needless to say, the gameplay of Hanabi is still unimpeachable as far as I'm concerned. I'm not going to go through all of my final thoughts of what I think about the gameplay. You can watch my original review of the card game version for that. But I will just reiterate just the major points, which is that it's a fantastic cooperative game. It gets rid of the alpha gamer problem. Everyone really has to cooperate and work hard together. It can be a stressful game. There are people in my group who think that the game is excellently designed and is a good game, but will refuse to play the game because it is just too stressful for them. They feel too much pressure meeting the demands of the group, but personally, I love that kind of stress. And I have probably played Hanabi 20 to 25 times at this point, and I've enjoyed it more and more as time goes on. You get better and better at it. It rewards playing with the same group of people over and over again and picking up on the subtle clues that everyone has. So that's my little mini review of Hanabi as a whole. Now, what does the deluxe set bring to the table, literally? This is just those tiles, but really those tiles make a huge difference. I played this version of Hanabi with 4 different groups of people. People that I have played Hanabi with before, and new people as well. The people that I had played Hanabi with before, the card game version, said, "Oh, this is amazing. This is so much better than the original." And people that had never played Hanabi before, they'd only heard of it, they were gamerly gamers, but they never actually sat down to play the game before, were like, "You would play this with cards? That would be so annoying. How would you keep the cards faced out from you and moving them around to keep track of what's what?" Now, obviously, we managed when I only had the normal card game version of it. And I'm not going to say that the card game version is now unplayable. It's garbage now. You know, there's some things that felt a little cooler and better about holding the cards in your hand, and it kind of added to the stress of the game, and you might consider that like an extra challenge mode that you had to worry about. But for simplicity's sake, and also for the sake of having new players that you are kind of new to board games, that you want to play this game that sounds completely bizarre to them, having tiles works so much better. Everybody liked them. I liked them. It's kind of a pain to shuffle around on the table, I'll admit that, and it is kind of, you do have to be careful that you don't bump them over or knock them over. If you can find something akin to a Scrabble rack, but with a deeper concave in it, so you can actually, because the tiles are really thick, if you can find something like that and to put the tiles on, that might be best if you really want to pimp out the game. But even as it is, it works well, and even the tokens, the fact that they made them little plastic tokens instead, that was a neat thing that they went above and beyond on. I like the little designs, like the fireworks patterns on all the tiles. It works well, and I like it. I mean, here's the eternal question. Do you need this game, this deluxe version, if you already have Hanabi? A resounding no, because a sleeved copy of Hanabi is going to last you a million plays. If you're worried about your copy of Hanabi just wearing out, maybe that's why you want to get tiles, I wouldn't worry about that, because first off, you probably sleeved it like I did with my copy, but also it's like 10 to 15 bucks. It's a Spiel des Jahres winner. It's sold thousands and thousands and thousands of copies. It's not going anywhere. It's not going out of print anytime soon. But then again, if you really love Hanabi and you think that you're going to be playing it for years and years to come, the Hanabi Deluxe Edition is not a bad buy, and you can get it for, depending on where you shop, 35 to 50 bucks. I think that's a steal for this, personally, because it looks great. I have some quibbles with the package in and of itself. It has that cool magnetic seal, which I like. I like other games that have that, but the game is so heavy that it really doesn't do much. That seal is there just to barely hang on, just as decoration, and I would encourage you not to flip the box over on its side. Hold it firmly so that that doesn't pop open. Also, it stinks. I mean, it literally stinks in the box. You're not going to notice this while you're playing, but I dared a couple people to, here, smell inside the box. And they're like, oh, what is that? They use some sort of chemical. It smells like acetone. I'm sure it's not acetone, but it smells something akin to that, like you just walked into a nail salon. It is really strong, and I'm sure that'll go away over time. It reminds me of that game Drakon, and people said that when you first got the game, Drakon, the miniature itself, stunk like old rotten leather. This is maybe better than that, but it still stinks. So there's that. And maybe it's from that chemical, but some of the tiles have some little kind of residue on them. But those to me are minor things. Maybe they're not to you, but I wasn't too worried about them, but I felt that they were worth mentioning. I also alluded in my intro that there is another deluxe version of Hanabi that was originally in Europe, and I don't know too much about it. I know that it came in a nicer wooden box. I had flirted with the idea of buying it quite a while ago, and I just never wanted to pull the trigger on it because it's quite a bit more expensive than this R&R Games version is. But it comes in a wooden box. I think the tiles are a little bit thinner, which could be, and then it comes with racks, I think, or maybe you have to get racks yourself, but it makes it more easier to use with racks, and it also doesn't have an image on the back of the tiles, which some people seem to like more. I told you that I'll have a link, if I remember, down in the description section with a Board Game Geek blog post from someone who gives a really good breakdown of the pros and cons of each. And he comes out on the side of the original wooden box edition, but does point out that that's really expensive and can be kind of hard to track down, so you might want to go for this version instead. But either way, if you really love Hanabi and you're getting a lot of plays out of it, you might want to consider this. If you haven't played Hanabi before, if you're still on the fence about it, just get the card game version because it's 10 to 15 bucks. Find out if you like it first, and then even if you decide to pick up the Deluxe Edition later, it's not a bad idea to have the card game. I'm going to keep my card game because it's portable. It's way more portable than this. I mean, not way more, but pocket. You know, you can put it in your pocket, and it's much lighter. So, and then you can say, oh, we just played the card game version of Hanabi. Now look at this! Which is a cool effect. So, anyways, Lays It, Hanabi is a great game, and I like this new edition of it, foibles and all. That is the Hanabi Deluxe Edition from R&R Games. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.